Ready!
I do want to talk about something having to do with Yoshimitsu because I know that some of you guys have been wanting some Yoshi content, and I want to explain as to why I'm not really playing him as often. And even though it's just it's just give you my thoughts as to why I have been being very unmotivated to pick him up again, even though you guys have asked a couple of times as to why it is that I haven't been playing Yoshimitsu. I want to explain why. So here's the one thing I want to say. I feel that Yoshimitsu in this game has been overly simplified in a lot of ways, at least at its core base, when it comes to his combo structure, when it comes to how you perform some of his overall combos, creativity in the sense. It becomes quite homogenized in a sense as to how you really play him. So I feel that he's a lot boring than he was in Tekken 7, where you relied a lot on confirming your down 4-2s and stuff like this. CD2 used to launch, or in this case used to give you a bound in Tekken 7, and that was essentially removed in this game in favor of giving him stuff like, let's say, 2-2 that now bounds, that also gives you no sword stance. 2-3 used to also bound as well, and that was essentially removed in this game as well, in favor of just giving you a move that's not really all that pragmatic to use in the first place, since the move itself is not even a guaranteed follow-up, unless it's on a counter hit. But why use that when down 2 into 1 is guaranteed, and it's a much better move to use? The only difference is that this move is 11 frames, so it's faster, but this is guaranteed at least. Not even that, you can even use 2-1. 2-1 is a much better option because this is a high into a mid. Unlike with 2-3, that's a high. And this doesn't jail either. So even when you do, let's say, get it at the wall, and you get a counter hit, you get a wall splat. Same thing with 2-3. And you get 1 extra damage, but there's only 1 extra damage when playing Yoshimitsu. So again, what is the use of 2-3 besides that you have a different type of string you can use, other than maybe that if, let's say, I think in past games, I'm not too sure whether or not if it was the case, I could be misremembering, but I believe 2-3 used to be able to go into down back 3s. But you can't do that now. I don't even think we can do it in Tekken 7, to be honest, but I feel like I am making up shit right now, because it's been such a long time since I played Yoshi in past Tekken games, not just Tekken 7, but like say Tekken 3 or Tekken 5. So I don't know whether or not if you can still do this from 2-3, or if it was even there in the first place. So stuff like that is just a little bit of an annoyance in my opinion, that they removed a lot of the cool stuff that they used to have in Tekken 7. That's the game that I played the most in. It's where I started to really make content on Tekken in general, and they essentially just, butchered a lot of the moves that used to be a lot of fun in Tekken 7. Of course, you can still perform CD2 to counter hit launch, that's still in the game, but I would rather like to see CD2, which is my favorite move in his kit, to be brought back to its glory, how it was in Tekken 7, because that was the reason why I picked up Yoshimitsu in the first place in Tekken 7, was CD2. This move alone was the reason why I got into Yoshimitsu, because to me, this was the anime quick slash type move that I liked about Yoshimitsu. Which is funny because now the one that does it is not Yoshimitsu anymore, it's Victor. Victor is the quote-unquote anime guy because he has the katana, he has all the fancy Aijutsu stuff that he can do in his gameplay. The reason why I got into, again, because of Yoshimitsu, is CD2, because it looks just like it. It looks like if you're doing an Aijutsu style attack. So I like that. But now it's, gloriness is no longer there. So you can't even get a bound by performing CD2 anymore. And your usual combos from Tekken 7 are gone. Hell, even your tech traps, if you perform, let's say, a bound against the opponent, you can still kind of do it. Doing stuff like this, you can still kind of do it, but it's not the same. I don't know what about it, but something about it's not the same as it used to be. And seeing that, if let's say if I were to make the opponent block, And this move used to be an unblockable, and now it's no longer an unblockable. Same thing with Flea. Flea into jumping Flea, doing stuff like this, it's no longer an unblockable anymore. Which for good reason, because they gave this move to him. He can now transition into Flea stance by doing that move. So it's nice. And actually, I dig it. I really do like that they gave this to him. And then Flea into 4-1+2 as well. Can also transition into Flea stance, allowing him to have more mix-up options to use while going into Flea, instead of just going for the same gimmicks, like going to Indian stance, going into Med stance, going to Kensho stance, stuff like that, right? And mind you, this is a counter hit launch, so you can also use this against the opponent if they're trying to press buttons. And it's not like I don't like the new stuff that he's got in Tekken 8, like in the case of, let's say, this, you know, 3-2-1+2, or up back 1+2. These are nice moves. 3-1 as well. That gives you a free mix-up on block if they don't end up ducking the last hit. So stuff like that I actually do like about Yoshimitsu, but I still would have liked to keep some of the things that made him what he was in the past games. Of course, I know I'm mostly reminiscing, I'm being nostalgic about it, and I'm asking for stuff that the developers themselves don't want to change anymore, because this is what they want the game to be like. There's a lot of other stuff too about his gameplay that I kind of wish that they added in. Like, for example, here's something that I would like to see them do for Yoshimitsu, even if it meant that they had to nerf him in other areas of his gameplay, right? As an example, let's say if Yoshimitsu goes into his no sword stance, and you know, a lot of the times that you want to go for your combo routes and you want to go for your optimal routes, if you get a launch and you want to go for flash, you get yourself the strong aerial tailspin, right? I like to call it a super spin because it's, you know, shorter than I have to say the full word of it, but the super spin itself is fun to use when you pull it off with flash. But what if instead of doing flash while you're in no sword stance, or if you're in heat, you would go instead do, let's say, any of your launchers and you go for CD2 instead. And CD2, let's say, gives you the super spin. That would be pretty nice, and it fits too because the move is accurate by the animation itself, and super spins usually tend to work on moves that tend to hit more laterally than, you know, vertically, right? So that would at least allow it so that if, let's say, you don't have to end up using your no sword stance, and then you can then do your super spin, and then if you want to use flash right afterwards, you can to get in, to get another tailspin or a super spin. Or you can just leave it for the later on while you're doing your combo and then end it with 3-2-1+2. Or whatever other move you want to use that utilizes the enhancements of going into no sword stance to use your other move like 3-1. Or Kensho forward 1. So really, these things can really improve his creativity and funness into his gameplay. It changes how his combo can basically, you know, make it more fun looking in this sense. Because again, this might be a game that for most people that tend to play hardcore are mostly thinking competitively. They don't really care too much about the nuances that they may have seen in past games if they only care about winning, right? But in my case, I could care less if Yoshimitsu were to be nerfed drastically if it meant that they gave him more fun tools to use that could still help him and win games. I'm not saying that I want him to be more difficult to play, solely for the sake of making him weaker for that particular reason. But I want him to have some cool stuff that he can perform to make his overall creativity still there, without breaking the overall optimization means of dealing the most damage you want to be able to deal with Yoshimitsu, because that's the other thing as well. Because even though I'm saying that he doesn't have creativity, he does. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with Yoshimitsu, but it's not optimized. You're going for the cool, you know, combo factor, and then losing damage while doing so. But in Tekken 7, you can do cool creative combos that were actually quite optimized, and allow you to actually deal damage against the opponent. That's what I liked about Yoshimitsu as well in Tekken 7. At least, even though he wasn't really regarded as one of the strongest characters in the game, because he wasn't really that strong in general in Tekken 7, besides the fact that he had a low pick rate, and most players didn't really know the matchup. So that kind of helped a lot of Yoshi players win games in Tekken 7 because of that reason alone. So that's one of the things that I also want to say, is that CD2, if they just add this move back and give it the super spin treatment, like how Flash has the super spin treatment while in no sword stance, or either give it back his, you know, his bound, where he gets to bound like from 2-2. but you use CD2 instead. Imagine if they even went a little bit further in the cool factor. That let's say if he's in no sword stance and he does CD2 from, let's say, this distance. I know this is going to be so dumb and all of you are not going to like that idea of him having that. But let's say that he goes into CD2, oh sorry, not CD2, no sword stance. And he performs CD2 at this range and it increases the length of his sword because of the sword aura that he has while he's in this state. Or maybe it's not in no sword stance, but maybe in heat. And it does that, and it just increases the overall length of it, and maybe the speed. I think that would be pretty cool to see. And the only takeaway is that, let's say that on normal hit, it gives him the same amount of damage, or maybe a little extra damage overall, and it still counter hit launches, and it still gives him a super spin or a bound, depending which one they choose. I would like a super spin, to be honest. I like the super spin more so. But let's say if not just that, and let's say that when he does it, it has increased range and speed, but the negative traits would be to balance that out, that it's less than -14 or -15, right? So if let's say you were to use it at a combo structure, or let's say trying to bait somebody into something and you're in heat, or no sword stance if they add that in instead, and you block it, you get launched for attempting it. Something like that, to just add a little bit more creativity, but I'm just saying as an example, they don't have to add it. And besides that, yeah, I think that's the only real thing that takes me away from trying to play Yoshimitsu, because his combos are just way too homogenized. Like, this is what you do most of the time. This is what you're doing most of the time. You either go for flash, and if not that, you want to wall carry, or say. That's most of your enders. Your combo structure doesn't really change much, besides depending on how you launch them, what kind of starter you use. Of course, if you want to change it a little bit, you can do something like this. You can do stuff like that if you want, but again, not really optimal. You're losing out damage by doing stuff like this. Of course, not so much though, to be honest, but depending on the stage, you want to go for something like this. So if you want to go for that particular combo route, it does help a lot depending on how small the stage is and how close you're at the wall. But again, I still would like to see more of stuff like that I want to see in the case of CD2 being a super spin or a bound. It really changes how you want to do your combo routes, and I think that's really all it is, to be honest. Giving him some new stuff would be pretty cool to see, besides just simply just getting him more stance mix-ups. Which is still nice, but I would like to see more. And I don't really care if they do end up nerfing his damage a bit, or maybe nerf a lot of his other stuff, maybe in terms of frames. If it means that he gets some new stuff, new cool stuff, not just CD2 being a super spin, but more stuff that will allow him more access to more stance mix-ups, if not that. If it means that it will allow him to be that type of bamboozling character that he always was, but the fact that he loses out damage, so it becomes more fair, more balanced. That's the one thing that people still dislike about Yoshimitsu, is that he still has high damage. People still say that he has very low damage now in Season 2, which is not the case. I've done tests. He only loses out like about maybe 4 damage in comparison to the past game. Or past season, I mean. And he didn't really lose his one and only biggest like Oki setup at the wall, which is doing 2 back ones into 4-1+2. So he still has a lot of the stuff that makes him very strong in that particular department of his kit. And again, just to reiterate, his damage has not been significantly reduced. The one thing that I can mention that makes him super weak right now is using Samurai Cutter. The damage when doing Samurai Cutter is similar, but he gets too much white chip health. So let's say if I were to perform Samurai Cut against the opponent. As you see right there, there's a significant amount of white chip than there was before in Season 1. So it's only a little bit of raw damage done to the Yoshimitsu, in this case the dummy that I used against, and a whole lot of white chip. So if by any chance the other opponent has the offensive, they can get back all their white chip health. And if they end up getting a heat smash or a heat burst going or a heat engager going, they can get all their health back pretty quickly. So that's the one biggest nerf that they've done to Yoshimitsu, in my opinion, is that they heavily reduced the damage done by Samurai Cutter. Which all in all is not really a bad thing. It's not too bad of a thing, because you still have a lot of damage in a lot of other moves you can use. And you still have a lot of your basic, shenanigans you can perform to catch people off guard in the game. You still have a lot of unblockable means to go for combos. It kind of lagged right there. I'm trying to do CD1. In fact, you can still go for a lot of crazy types of mix-ups you want to go with Yoshimitsu. And you can still do stuff like that. Crazy mix-ups that depend on how the opponent ends up getting up from the ground. So yeah, I'm just hoping for more creativity with his kit. If they were to make some great changes, let's say in the coming future, maybe when Armor King comes out, or when Mary Zoo comes out, or maybe when Season 3 actually happens, which again will be too long in my opinion, because I wouldn't really be playing him then. But if they were to make these big changes, I think that I will most likely be picking him up again and playing some more Yoshimitsu, while also playing Armor King on the side, because I still want to be maining Armor King as my primary main, and then maybe have Yoshimitsu as my sub main. Even though there's other characters I like to play as well, that maybe I would like to have them as my subs. But if they make these changes with Yoshimitsu, then Yoshimitsu will take that position as my sub main character, as I'm maining Armor King as my first main character, or primary main character, in Tekken 8 at least. So that's about all. I hope that explains why I haven't been playing Yoshimitsu, why I haven't been really picking him up in general. So if you understand that, it doesn't mean that I won't be playing Yoshimitsu. Again, if you guys ask, if you want a petition or something like that, maybe I'll add a community post that you guys want, and then you can tell me whether or not if you want to see maybe like a week's worth of content of Yoshimitsu. If you want to see me play maybe for that week, and I'll make some videos for that week with Yoshimitsu in mind, then I'll do it for you guys. And maybe that will bring me back to playing a little bit of Yoshimitsu for the meantime until, Armor King comes out. So without further ado, if you guys like the video, like the video. If you don't, you can dislike it. Subscribe to receive more of my shit. And yeah, stay tuned, stay safe.